Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, where we help people to discover the powers they have inside of them to turn their world and accomplish their dreams and their goals that they have in life. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Desi Bolin, and Desi is the owner of her own company. And as I put in the description of this show, she is the person you want to go to when you need some help. If you're a solopreneur and you want to start having some help, she's the person to go to. So Desi, welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Patty. It's such an honor to be here. I'm happy to kind of share a little bit about what I do. And yes, please, if you need support, please don't hesitate to reach out. I do not charge for consultations. So if you just need advice, guidance, a second set of eyes, reach out.
Well, Desi, let's go back to when you first started your business, because, a lot of business owners, they get into business and, maybe they don't know why they got into business, or, maybe something led them into their business and they just sort of use that inside voice that they had to say, it's time to do something different. So just tell us a little bit about how you got started in your business.
So it's been a long journey, and there's a couple different pieces that play into that. So I've actually been in management positions since I was 17. So I have always been in a leadership position. So I have 10 years of corporate management experience. And then I left when I got pregnant with my son, the corporate world. And then, fast forward a few years, I had my daughter. And it's really, looking into her eyes and the reality of what am I going to do to provide for a family of four really hit me in the face. Just full frontal smack me in the face, because I thought about what it would be to do a normal job. And that would entail an hour of commute, an 8-hour day in town. So I decided to do something different. So we homeschool and I run my company. And that it's 5 years now. So we're going strong, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because you know what? I get to show up and I get to be the support for so many different people who are impacting lives. And I can honestly tell you, I do not regret working with any one of my clients, because they are all making moves and making impact.
So Desi, when you first made that decision, and obviously you did that because you wanted to provide for your family, and yet you wanted to, I guess, be with your children also. And so it was a move that could keep you at home in your own business and yet still allow you to do something that you felt like you were accomplishing something. So when you think back to that decision, what kind of, we always talk about, you have those voices inside of you, and the one saying, yeah, go ahead, you can do this, you can do this. And the other voice is like, no, I don't think you're not good enough for this, or aren't capable for this. So did you have any of those voices going on inside of your head?
Oh, absolutely. I still do. Still do. It takes a lot to overcome your own self-talk. And a lot of us do have some positive, but mostly negative self-talk. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of low confidence. Now, I may seem very confident, but I do still have self-esteem issues. I still have to battle with my inner voice 5 years later telling me, hey, am I actually good enough for this?
I tell my clients that all the time. You cannot work hard enough to overcome that image you hold of yourself. And so often we hold this false image of ourselves that we can't do something. And sometimes it's just a little thing that you start to realize, hey, I'm really good at this, and I can really do something, and benefit other people. And that gives us that little boost. So what kind of things do you like to help people do that kind of give you that boost that, yeah, I know what I'm doing here, I'm good at it?
Yeah, I I feel like I'm good at it. Still, there is that talk that I might not be as good as someone else out there. But what I love to do for people primarily, and keep in mind, I have over 83 different services, and every single one of them I love to do. But the main things that I work on for people is getting systems set up, getting automations in place to give you more time back in your hands to do other things that are going to generate um, money for you, but allow you to live in your genius. So it's living your life without worrying about the details is really what we do. And then the third piece is providing a team. So me and my team then become your support team. So essentially, you are not in this alone. Even if we don't work together exchanging money wise, still you are not alone. And like I said in the beginning, even if you just need advice, a guidance, a second set of eyes, reach out because I live to serve and I want to see you grow. Whether that is just answering a few questions, whether that is walking you through something that you just don't know how to do yet, I am there for you and my team is there for you.
So let's get back to that part about living in your genius. I
Mm.
think so many business people, when they decide, are, all by themselves, they, get their hands into doing things that maybe they're really not good at. And maybe they hire them out, maybe they're afraid to hire them out. But let's talk about that genius part. How do you find what you're really good at?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is so, so critically important to do what you love because if you're sitting there bogged down by the details, stressing out over certain things that you don't like to do but are critical to the success of a business, say billing, say just the admin work, all of that can be outsourced. And it really does allow you to do what you started your business for in the first place. Um, and I would like to add that it is not as expensive as you might think, especially working with someone like me and my team. We work very hard to customize packages based on financial need, based on business need, and based on projects. It's really dependent upon those three factors. And living in your genius is what is going to allow you to make the biggest impact with your audience. So that is our goal, is to support you to a point where you are able to do that.
That's really awesome for people to know. So let's just talk about some of the technology things that you do for people. And, everybody hears that, oh, they've got to be in social media. They got to do this, they got to do that. So what are some of the critical things that you think a business really needs? And what things can they just kind of let go by for a little?
So social media is important for visibility. Now, I'm not saying ads because I've never run ads. I've never paid for marketing. It is more about building relationships. So that piece isn't as critical, but social media, you can and are able to connect with more people that way. You're able to start building more relationships that way. So that's important to keep in mind. But a few systems that I always recommend to get in place is a CRM, a customer relationship management system. And that it excuse me, is so you can track each and every touch point that you have with each and every contact, whether it be a lead, whether it be a collaborative partner, whether it be a client. You want to track that so you can go back and review your notes. You don't have to keep everything stored in your brain. And it's so much easier than a spreadsheet. Now, there are certain CRMs that have a marketing suite built within the system. So, say, for example, Keep is one that we regularly use. It is one that I am certified in. Um, they have email broadcasts, so like MailChimp, like Active Campaign or Constant Contact. They'll email broadcast so you can do your bulk emails. They also have incorporated a bulk texting functionality when you get a business line through Keep, and that's very inexpensive as well. But it is important to set up those pieces. And then the third piece that I always say is your automations. It's important to figure out what you have to do manually and what can be automated so you get the time in your hands that is there. I know from experience, I've worked in over 60 industries. A lot of the times when we get the CRM system set up with the automations, we get back 40 to 60 hours a month. Can you imagine what you could
Wow.
do with that time?
Yeah, that's like, a whole week of working.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get back a week and a half, really.
Yeah. And it's
And that's
powerful stuff.
and that's just by automating things in your business.
Mm-hmm. Just by automating a few certain little pieces. You getting often set up that automated, so whenever someone signs up for your freebie, whatever that may be, there is a sequence, an email sequence associated with that that automatically goes out, and it's going out. And now the only thing with that is there's a little bit of monitoring just to make sure it's working the way you want it to work. But other than that, it's completely hands off. And then, of course, there is a reply to email. So you may get a few responses back, which would be great. And then you just continue the conversation from there.
Yeah, I was setting up an email sequence the other day, and all of a sudden I didn't know. I set up a new funnel, and then I started getting these emails that were, of course, generic, and they were, in email number 2, do blah, 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 blah. It was like, where's this coming from? So, that took me time to go back into my system, figure out where the email was coming from, so
Yeah,
that, before anybody signed up for my free offer, they were actually getting a real email, not something that obviously had not been completed yet. So that's really
absolutely.
important too.
It is so important. Yeah. What I recommend for that is when you set up an automation and you're a doing an event and you want to have something specific to that event, you just clone the steps. You clone the landing page where your opt-in is, and you clone the automation and reconnect them, but change it how you want it so you still have the original.
That's a good idea too, to always clone those things instead of having to reinvent things over and over again.
Yeah, no, it's great to repurpose, especially if what you have currently created works. Changing a few words here and there, changing some of the graphics depending on what event you're speaking at or where you're showing up. It's a lot easier than recreating everything.
Right, right, absolutely. So what are some of the important things, we talked about the CRM. What else is important that people have in place when they're first starting out? Like, what do they really need? And, what are things that can come later?
Yeah, so I do suggest at least one social media account, and again, that's just for connection. Why? So you can start building relationships, especially because the social media world is so vibrant and so present right now. If you're not there, you're really probably not getting seen very often. And then figure out how you want to show up, how you want to um, get visible. Do you want to do it through networking? Do you want to do it through ads? Do you want to do it through collaborative partners? Word of mouth, similar to what I do. Understanding what you're creating is critically essential. So, having a business plan written out, even if it's not a full business plan, but understanding why you started the business, who you're reaching out to, and what you're doing for them is insanely important. And then understanding a little bit about the buyer journey. The buyer journey is really something that your customers go through. So your audience, from start to finish, what are they experiencing? You kind of want to put yourself in your client's shoes and understand what they're going through with all of those touch points and see if there's anything that you would change. It's
Is it
important to kind of take a step back and get that bird's eye view.
So it's really important to know what the customer or client really needs and what they're really looking for, if you're going to be
Absolutely.
able to reach them in a way that they want to connect with you.
Absolutely, yes. And then, and then going back to some of the systems you want to have in place. Um, the third piece is that communication piece, and we kind of touched on it a little bit when I did the marketing. But making sure you have your communication channels open and ready to go before you start the business is essential. So, for example, me, I am always available on 6 different platforms: email, phone, business line, Keep. I have LinkedIn and Facebook Messenger that I am always available on, and I try to respond within 30 minutes. And then there some of the pieces, I mean, those are the three things that I would really say. When you're starting out, you want to get your CRM set up, you want to get your marketing squared away, and you want to get your communication in line on the tech side. Now, there are a few other pieces that you have to have in place before you launch, like knowing what your product is, knowing what your service is, understanding your why, getting your branding in place. All of those are important. And speaking to branding, I would say you want to make sure it's something that you really love, because going through a brand change after you've been in business for a while is a big ordeal. One, and two, when you're creating social media, you want to make sure your branding's consistent across all platforms where you are showing up. So you are easily identifiable. And if you're going to do social media posting, I would suggest doing it on a consistent schedule so the audience that follows you know when to expect your content.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Certain time of day or certain days or both?
It depends on the platform. There are best times of days. Typically for emails, Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays are the best. Mondays and Fridays are shown and proven to be the worst for open rates. Social media wise, really depends on the platform. Say for instance, Facebook, there's a few different times. I believe it's like 11, 2, and like 6:30. Those are the times that people are most active on the platform. LinkedIn is completely different because there's people active on that platform all day. You just have to, and there are things that you can research, and I have some of that. I just don't have it off the top of my head. But yeah, there are certain times of the day where posting is shown to be better, get better engagement. And that is another piece that you can kind of automate. I actually have a social media scheduling tool that is available to all of my clients, especially because we do social media management, and it doesn't cost them anything. Most of the platforms cost $50 a month. That does not cost them anything. It's free to use. But doing that allows you to just create your content, which can be outsourced, right? Uploading it into that system, grabbing approval from your client, and then posting it, scheduling it in a calendar so it goes out automatically. That way you can set it and forget it. And then you can go back, each week and take a look at the engagement. I would say with social media management and building relationships, you want to follow up on the comments. You want to follow out or figure out who's liking your posts. And it's especially important to respond to those comments. They want to see that you're present.
Okay, so which social media platforms do you think are the best?
For me personally, Facebook and LinkedIn. Again, that depends on the business model, because you want to take a look at these social media platforms where your audience lives. If you're targeting a younger generation, Instagram and TikTok are going to be your platforms. If you're targeting high power CEOs, that's going to be LinkedIn. It really just depends on who your target audience is. And there are some insights it can provide on the others, but you've really got to understand your business in order to do that.
Yeah, that's a key thing, because people do get confused. And do you have to be on all the platforms or just pick one or two that are best for you?
I usually recommend only picking one or two
Okay.
to start with, and you can always expand into others. And that is because you don't want to get inundated by the details. And that's really kind of what I do. You want to pick the two platforms where your audience is most present and most active. Start with those. And then if you want to later on, you can expand into it. But if you take everything on at once, it's going to get overwhelming. And I
Mhm.
always say this too, when you're doing systems, when you're doing automations, you pick one and you start from there. And then you figure out what to do next. Because if you take all of these pieces on right at the same time, nothing's going to get done. No progress is going to get made because you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to be overworked and your brain will fry.
Yeah. So let's just look at another side. We've talked about when you start your business and those voices that you hear. So did you ever have a time where you felt a bit discouraged and you thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? And maybe felt like perhaps you gave up a little security that by going into business for yourself. And if that happened to you, how did you overcome it?
Um, More often than I care to admit, that occurs. Um, there are many points where I got very close to quitting, but I remind myself why I do it. Your why you're doing what you're doing is so incredibly important because you've got to keep that front and center. I am here to serve others so they can impact the world. And going back to a corporate job, it's not for me. I don't I'm not a follower. I'm kind of like a trailblazer. Um, but that is what has pulled me back from the ledge each and every time because my heart breaks when I think about not being able to serve people the way I have been. And that's what keeps me going.
So it's really important for people to have a why as
Incredibly
to
important.
why
It's
they're doing what they're doing.
I would argue it's the most important.
So a lot of times I tell my clients, they need to find something when they feel discouraged, because we talk a lot about the vibration that people are in. So if you're in a low feeling vibration, you're not feeling good about yourself, you're starting to question yourself. I always tell clients what you need to do. You're not always going to be way up here, floating along the clouds. Everything's, super great every day. That's not the way life is. But in those moments when you are feeling a little down and a little discouraged, find a book, find a piece of music, find something, an
Meditation.
affirmation to try to get you back up to where you need to be. So have you found anything like that as you've been going through your business that maybe you cling to?
Absolutely. Well, I do love to read. While I do not have the time so much right now, but I have been recently meditating, and that helps me really focus. It helps me to focus and it helps me to stay clear. So yes, meditations, and then you're speaking about affirmations. I have these cool little affirmation cards that I pull every day, and it helps set the tone for the day. Um, so it's just a matter of finding what works for you because it's not going to be the same solution for everyone.
Exactly. Yes, I was telling a client the other day, for some people it's vision boards, for other people it's a book, for another person it's writing down your goal, for another person it's reciting the goal. It is different for each person. You have to find what works for you. And just because somebody says, oh, this is what you need to do, kind of like social media. I can't tell you when I got in business how many people said, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do this and and you're right, you get overwhelmed. What's the same thing when you're trying to, figure out how to get out of those doldrums. It's different for each person. So you have to find that thing that works for you and,
Absolutely.
find what it is that can help you turn yourself around so that you can then, continue chasing your dream.
Absolutely. And I will say, watch out because everyone and their brother are going to want to tell you what to do. That does not
True.
mean it's right for you.
That's exactly right. And everybody's out there to give you their advice. So you really have to find people you can trust, which is why I brought Desi on the show, because I wanted, when you have a relationship with somebody, you develop that trust, And so I wanted to offer you to the audience as somebody that they can go to and trust, because believe me, I've wasted a lot of money on people that did not do what they said they were going to do.
Exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
very, costly, and it makes you become a little cynical and, a little cautious maybe with other people. So you need to find people that you can trust, and, people that other people will recommend. And I know you were recommended to our group that I'm in, and, so it's how we got to know each other. And so I just want people to know, to find somebody you can trust.
Absolutely. And speaking to that, it hurts my, like, deep in my soul, it hurts when I hear someone who may not be a client yet, but I hear someone who got burned by someone in my industry. Being an assistant, you'll hear SVA when I talk, because that's my trademark. My strategic virtual assistant is mine, but I'm still part of the virtual assistant industry, and it hurts. It physically hurts when I hear people getting hurt, people getting ghosted, people getting hacked. And I am working every day to reduce the stigma around those bad experiences. It's hard work to get people to trust again,
Yes.
even
But,
when you can help them, but
you
they
have to
have to be trusted.
we have to keep in mind that that's in every profession. There
Yeah.
are good people and bad people, or, poor examples in every profession. And, it's just a matter of finding the right ones for you. And sometimes it's just not a good fit. I know in my coaching world that sometimes I'll meet with a potential client and I know that they're not the right person for me, or their issue is not one that maybe I particularly like to solve or feel that I'm particularly good at solving. So that's when I pass them on to somebody else.
I am exactly the same, and that's why I have collaborative partnerships. I actually have about 30 partners right now, who I know, like, and trust. So if you come to me with a problem, like, say, for example, website coding, one thing that I cannot do, I have partners who I trust, who are very good at what they do, that I can hand you off to and know that you will be taken care of without having to follow up with him and make sure that things are getting done, because I know that's happening.
Yeah, and that's really important, that we do establish those people that we can, safely know that if we recommend them, they're going to be well taken care of.
Absolutely.
And that's part of networking that, again, business people need to do. They need to be able to network so they find people that they can share with others and, recommend, and know that they're going to be well taken care of.
Oh, yes. And there are so many networking events now. There's a ton. I'm a part of, I think, 6 different networking events, but one of those groups has 65 free networking events a week, per
Wow.
week, mind you. And you can join as many as you want. It's just a matter of how much time you want to dedicate to it.
Exactly.
One thing I will caution you guys with is, if you're going to do networking, don't just get their information and do nothing with it. Make the effort to build the relationship, because more often than not, it's going to pay out for you in the end, whether it be referrals into you or having someone that you can refer out to.
Well, Desi, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they reach out to you?
I have a contact form on my website, virtuallysourced.com. My email, and probably the best way to reach out to me, is DB, D as in dog, B as in boy, at virtuallysourced.com. So very simple. I am also on Facebook, and direct messages I check all the time. So any one of those would be the best way to reach out.
Okay, Desi, and I appreciate you sharing with us today. And I know you said briefly some of the services, but you basically do anything pretty much that a business would need as far as the
Anything under the
technical side
sun.
and
Yeah.
the media side, right?
Yeah, no, so I do all of the general admin things, so data entry, your market research, um, anything like that. I do logos, graphic design, website design and branding. On the higher end, I do a customer health satisfaction survey. I do lead nurture campaigns because I hate calling it lead generation. It's nurturing because you're building relationships. I also do total addressable market reports. I do buyer journey. I do some competitive secret shopping as well. Literally anything you can think of. The only thing that I can think of that I do not do is website coding, and I'm sure I will learn that at some point because I'm a perpetual student. I actually have a degree in medical coding and billing. It's a little known fact, but I have that as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Desi, for joining us here today on Your Inside Power. And again, reach out to Desi if you have any needs in your business. Thanks again for sharing with us today.
My pleasure.